In computer graphics, we can actually define how our lights behave. In the real world, lights fall off with the square of the distance. But in 3ds Max, we can actually change the way that lights attenuate and decay over distance. So here I have a simple scene with a bunch of chairs and a simple spotlight shining on them. Now, if I want to, I can actually affect the way that the light falls off. So if we scroll down to the Intensity Color Attenuation tab, you can see that I have a multiplier here, which turns up or down the light. Now I'm going to keep this at 1. And then we have two values here. We have decay and attenuation. Now, decay is the more naturalistic way of going about this. So right now we have no decay on the light. So as you can see, this light illuminates the last chair equally to the first. In other words, the light is not falling off with distance, which is what it would do in the real world. But we can change that. So all we have to do is use this pull-down menu to change it to either inverse or inverse square. Now, inverse falls off linearly, which isn't quite natural, but it does give you a different effect. So if I change it to inverse, notice how these chairs towards the end are illuminated a lot less than the ones towards the beginning. And that's because the light is falling off with a linear distance. Now, if we want to make this real world, we change this to inverse square. Now what this does is it allows the light to fall off with the square of the distance. And notice how it falls off pretty significantly even by the time it hits that first chair. Now if you use this, you may have to turn up the multiplier to get the brightness that you need. Now in addition to this, we have what's called a start for attenuation. So as you can see, we have this little half sphere here on the light. And if we move this, you can see how if I increase this value, this is where the light starts to fall off. So if I place this at the first chair, it won't start that inverse square fall off until it hits that first chair. So this is just another way to control your lights. So this is where that light actually starts falling off. Now if you set this back to none, it will go back to what we had before. In fact, I could probably turn down the multiplier here just to put it back into about the same brightness. Now, in addition to this, we also have more controllable attenuation. So we can attenuate by a near and a far value. So I'm going to start off with the far attenuation. So I'm just going to turn on use and then turn on show. And as you can see, we've got this little hemisphere here. And if I turn up the start here, you can see how this pushes the light all the way out. So this is where the attenuation of the light begins. So right now I have a value here of about 350 or 360. Now if I take that end, you can see I can actually dial up the attenuation to be exactly what I want. So anything past, in this case, 702 is not illuminated. So this gives me very specific ranges of fall off for that light. Now I can do the same on the other side. So near attenuation, I can turn that on. And if I change the end here, you can see how I can turn off this light using the start value. So I don't want the light to even start shining until, in this case, 330. Or I can pull back that start to kind of fade in the light as I want. So what we have here is we have an attenuation that is on both sides of the light. Where does it start shining and where does it end? So we have really good, fine, discrete control over the light. Now this near and far attenuation will also work with decay if you so choose.